and welcome back to my channel. I am so honored to have a very special guest in the house today, Chef O, who's gonna teach us what?
I'm gonna teach you all how to make a Beef Wellington. I'm really excited, y'all. And I'm a private chef here in Atlanta, and this happens to be the #1 dish people request for. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna teach you guys how to make it from scratch, dumb it down. It's gonna be fun and exciting, so stay tuned. So the very first step in making a Beef Wellington is you're gonna sear the beef tenderloin. And the beef tenderloin is the center cut of a filet mignon. It's a Chateaubriand.
Chateaubriand, perfect.
All right, so we got a couple ingredients right here. So we got Dijon mustard. It has a little bit more of a kick. And you got a high smoke point oil. You use canola oil or vegetable oil. And you got some pepper. And you got some pink Himalayan salt. Follow me. I guess we're gonna go ahead and coat it both sides.
All right, so we put oil on both before you salt and pepper it.
And the thing about a filet mignon is that people think it's very lean.
Right.
But it's not lean, right?
I thought it was lean, and they're like bland. They always say like filet mignon, it's lean, it's bland.
No, it's not
Look
lean.
at that marbling.
Yeah, it's got a lot of marble to it, right? Not so much, but sometimes the marble you can't even see it. So that's what makes it super tender. Get some pepper. I use pink Himalayan salt because I like it. It's got a little more like a sweeter taste to it, so I like it. It's not overly salty like table salt is or kosher salt. Okay.
So all four sides.
All four sides. So the most important thing is, like, you know, before you go ahead and start cooking your beef tenderloin, you want to make sure it's evenly shaped.
Yes.
Got a nice cylinder.
Right. That's perfect. Okay. And why do you want it so that it cooks evenly in the oven, right?
Perfect. Because what we're gonna go for today is a medium rare. Okay. Nice. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer this over to a cast iron pan. And I want to get this really, really hot, right? So you could tell when it gets a little bit smoky, that's when you know that it is time to go ahead and put a little bit of the high smoke point oil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, you can see it's kind of steaming right now. Be very careful, this is a Wolf gas range, sort of like your house. Okay? So it's nice and hot. Nice. What I do is go ahead and you see the fattier side, kind of let it go down, let it render. I don't want that crust. I just want to go ahead and close it off, right? And you see what I'm doing is I'm grabbing it and making circular motions. 5 seconds on each side because you want to coat everything all together. Okay? Make sure you get the ends. You don't want to overcook it. Like I said, only 5 seconds on each side. So what we're gonna do is immediately after you sear it, right, it's nice and hot, you go ahead and put some Dijon mustard with a paintbrush over it. Just a thin layer on it, all sides. Nice. And so the reason why you do it right after when it's hot, it absorbs the flavors. All right, nice and coated.
Now, do people taste the mustard or not really?
Well, I mean, they do and they don't. It all depends on the chef, because I don't like to overdo it, you know, because I want everybody to taste every bit of the ingredients we're putting on there, right? Like I said before, is that it encompasses a lot of different ingredients. We've got the prosciutto, we've got the mushrooms, and then also we got the puff pastry on there. And I want everybody to taste every single ingredient.
Gotcha, perfect, okay.
So after we go ahead and coat it, we're gonna put it in the fridge to let it cool off for a good like 15 minutes or so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've seared the beef, we put it in the refrigerator, and now what do we do?
So now what we're gonna do is gonna create the mushroom paste, or we call it duxelle. Duxelle, sorry, I can't speak French,
no,
right?
it's perfect, it's perfect, which is basically a mushroom pate or a mushroom puree, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we got a couple ingredients right here. You got some baby bell mushrooms, and what I'm gonna do is go ahead and chop them up. And also I'm gonna have some shallots, I'm gonna chop it up. And you got salt, and you got pepper, and you got the high smoke point oil. We're gonna go ahead, not necessarily puree them, we're gonna go ahead and put them in the food processor. And then after that, we're gonna transfer that on a hot pan. And what it does is that we're gonna go ahead and extract all the water, all right?
So it doesn't make the pastry soggy.
You don't wanna make it soggy, right? Because you wanna make it into a paste, all right?
Gotcha.
That's gonna be the layer between the actual the puff pastry and the actual meat, all right? So you'll see there could be like some sort of like berry between them, right? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and like chop them up into quarters, all right?
So for those that don't normally use shallots in their cooking, what is the shallot?
So shallots is kind of like a hybrid, I believe, you know, is of like between a sweet onion and also a garlic. So you got a little bit of that sweetness, but also you got a little bit of that bite, you know, a little bit of that kick. So what I do is there's no fancy way of actually chopping this right now, because all we're gonna do right now is put that in the food processor. I'm just gonna cut it in half.
Okay.
You know. All right, so now I got some thyme right here. All you do is go ahead and grab your fingers and kind of pull from the opposite direction.
Very easy.
Now what we're gonna do is add some oil, a little bit of like about a teaspoon in there. And just like a pinch of salt.
Perfect.
And you go ahead and put some pepper on there. Alrighty.
All right, and then I'm gonna bust out my food processor from like 2000. Thank you, Black & Decker. And do I do it on low or high? Or
put it on
close?
low. Put it on low.
Low? Okay.
So now what we're gonna do is gonna create the duxelle, right? So right now you got the pureed mushrooms right here,
Gotcha.
and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna place them in the hot pan. All right. What we're doing right now is extracting all that moisture out of there because we want to make it nice and thick and pasty. Because you see it's kind of mushy right now,
right?
You know, and you can tell right here. You see some of these little bubbles. We want to go ahead and we want to get it nice and seared. Okay.
So what happens if you don't cook it to where it releases most of the juices?
So what ends up happening is that, like, you know, when you lay out the prosciutto on top of, you know, the mushrooms and along with the puff pastry,
right?
When you go ahead and put it in the oven and you let it cook, what's going to end up happening is that it's going to turn into like a monsoon almost. You know, it gets all wet, and then next thing you know, it's going to rip, and
you get the doughy pastry and everything.
Yeah, the dough's not.
So
gonna be
this
crispy,
part
you
is
know?
very, very important.
Very, very important. People mess this up a lot. You know, you could do a good job on the meat and everything else, cooked really well, but then again, next thing you know, the pastry is all soggy because you don't do a good job of extracting all that water out of it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now,
it's
nice and pasty.
Perfect.
So now what we're gonna do is gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge for a good, like, what, 10, 15 minutes to let it cool down a little bit.
All right, so next is what?
So now we got the puff pastry, we just gotta roll out. You could spend a lot of time making your puff pastry. It's gonna take a lot of time, which consists of flour and a lot of butter, but sometimes we don't have all that time in the world, right? So what I typically do is go to the local farmer's market, and they typically have like pre-made puff pastry, which is in the frozen section. So usually they come in like something like thick like this, but what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and roll it out as flat as we can, right? Make it really thin, not too thin, but we want to make it thin enough because what it ends up doing once you put it in the oven, right, for 375 degrees, it rises.
Gotcha.
You know?
Okay. So you need parchment paper.
Mm-hmm. You got parchment paper. You got some flour. You can use any type of flour. You know, we're not making pasta, so you don't need a 00 flour. You know,
Gotcha.
You got all-purpose flour.
Right,
so what I'm doing is going ahead, rolling it out. I'm just using like one of these little, you know, dumpling rolling pins.
I was like, that's so Asian. That is not a typical rolling pin, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
So I'm gonna go ahead and just roll this out thin as I can. So you saw the small. Now look at this. This is getting wider and wider and bigger and bigger.
Okay, so we've done the puff pastry. We've put it in the fridge. We're gonna let that cool down. And what's next?
So now what we're gonna do is gonna wrap up the beef tenderloin with some prosciutto and also some of that duxelle. Okay, so it's almost kind of like making a prosciutto cigar. Let's say. So now what we're gonna do is gonna go ahead and lay it out. So you could tell by the size of this beef, right? Is that you want to get it where it's all going to be lined up next to each other, but you want to overlap each other, you know, with some of these prosciuttos. Okay? So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and lay it down. Make sure you got to do it slowly. All right, and you get just a little bit on the edges, and overlap, and pull it out, and you grab another one.
And so this is why you don't have to salt this layer, because the prosciutto itself is pretty salty.
Yeah, it has a lot of savory taste to it. You know, it's savory and it's also fatty, and it's great and delicious. So you see now it's overlapping each other.
That's beautiful.
But we want to make sure when you look at the beef that it's gonna be perfect, because you want to overlap it just a little bit on the outside because you want to cover it up. But that's not it. You're also gonna put more, and you can put a little bit more on the top, like a little bit halfway up.
Gotcha. So it can go over the entire roast. Okay.
Because what we're gonna do is roll it up, all right? So now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna add the duxelle on prosciutto.
That's beautiful.
And I'm gonna go ahead and just lay it flat. What happens when you roll it out, it starts to overflow. So you don't want too much in one area, kind of spread it out nice and evenly, okay? All right, so after when you have that nice layer, let's go ahead and place the beef in the middle, right in the middle, okay? And so here, think about it this way, you're rolling sushi in a way, right? So you got the cellophane wrap. Wrap it up. Right? You squeeze it in here, right? Slowly roll it.
And this is why you have the cellophane down first. That makes it so much easier.
Squeeze. And then do this.
It's like you're rolling a Cuban cigar.
Perfect. No, perfect. See now, you notice the sides. You want to go ahead and tuck everything in, like you're tucking into bed. So now you want to make it roll tight.
And why do you do it so tight? Like, what's the importance of it?
Because you just want to make sure you maintain that shape. I think
Okay.
that's very, very important, is to maintain that shape.
So you get that even coat when you go to put in the pastry. Okay.
Perfect. And after that, you want to go ahead and put it in the fridge for about 20 minutes.
I got that. I could do this. All right. So after everything's been in the refrigerator, what do we do?
So now what we do is we get the wrapped up meat.
Yep.
It's wrapped up with prosciutto. Let's go ahead, let's unwrap.
Perfect. Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
See that? This looks like a cigar.
Yes. Perfectly even, a perfect cylinder.
You know, we don't need so much of this, so I just kind of cut off the little ends right here.
Yep.
And I want to make it like a perfect square, okay?
Okay.
So you want to base it together. You want to use some egg yolks. I'm going to use Amber egg yolks just because I'm fancy.
Happy Eggs, could you please sponsor us?
So you can see right now, I'm giving it a nice...
And this glues it
wash.
together? Okay.
Which is a really good adhesive product, okay? So this is a, I think it was like glue, all right?
All right.
And kind of stretch it out, but don't stretch it out too much because you don't want to rip it, all right? Kind of stretch a little bit.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And roll it up like this.
So you don't want it to really overlap. You want it to touch, but that's basically, you want to cover every part.
Tuck in the sides. And the good thing, the reason why we use that egg yolk is to go ahead and get it nice and sticky. All right.
Anything you don't need, cut off.
Cut off.
All right. Perfect.
And so you think that's it, right? But no, you have to wrap it in Saran Wrap.
All right.
So now you can see right now, it's nice and covered. They got the Saran Wrap, and you gotta roll it tight.
Okay. You really want that nice cylinder block. Okay.
Right.
I got it.
So now we're gonna go ahead and gonna put it in the fridge for a good like 20 minutes. I know it's a lot of rest and there's a lot of moving pieces, but I guarantee you guys that this is gonna be well worth it.
So now that we have this beautiful piece of meat wrapped in pastry, what are we doing?
So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna coat it, right, with some egg wash. But before we go ahead and do that, you gotta make sure you put the Beef Wellington on top of some parchment paper on top of some, what do you call this, like cookie
Baking,
sheet, right?
yeah, baking paper.
Let's go ahead and coat it. And the reason why you wanna coat it, because you wanna keep that nice color, right? So when you put it in the oven for 375 degrees, it's gonna make the puff pastry nice and crispy and golden.
Oh, wow.
You put some like flour, salt.
Beautiful sea salt flakes.
And we're gonna go ahead and put some sesame seeds on there.
Oh, wow, that's a nice touch. I like that.
So now what we're gonna do is gonna put it in the oven. You don't wanna put a convection oven, right? You just wanna put it in a regular oven.
Bake.
All right, bake it for 375.
For those that don't know, can you tell them what the difference between bake and convection is?
Yeah, so convection is almost like the air fryer method, you know? So what happens is like the air circulates, right? So it cooks it much faster, but you don't wanna cook it too fast. So you wanna just get the bottom really nice and crusty, so you wanna get the actual oven right hot, starting from the bottom and the rises up.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
So 375, 30 minutes.
Here we go.
Perfect. So now that we have this set at a conventional setting, we're gonna do it for 30 minutes. But what I tell people that we need to do is go ahead and rotate it just once every 15 minutes, I would say, give or take. All right? So let's go ahead and pull it out. See that color? Nice and brown color right there. It's time. Wow, look at that.
That's a beautiful.
as it looks beautiful, you want to get into it. You don't do that. It's like a girl at a club. You can look, but it's like a girl at a club. You can look, but you cannot touch. Guys, I'm telling you this right now, everyone, do not touch this beef tenderloin. You can look at it. You can look at it, but do not.
You can admire it.
Yeah.
You can turn it.
You can look, but you can't touch. All right?
Don't touch it.
Let it sit. It's still cooking, okay? Don't poke at it. Don't even look at it. Just put it away, all right? For about 10 minutes, and I promise you, it's still cooking itself out. And after that, you go ahead and slice it up for the gram. All right.
So we're letting it basically release its juices and then absorb them back up
Exactly.
into the meat so that we can cut it and it doesn't bleed out.
Perfect. So now, we waited patiently for 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and just slice it down the middle, but you're gonna use a serrated knife, a bread knife, right? And so the big mistake is you don't wanna go ahead and like chop it like you're chopping some vegetables. You just wanna let the knife do its job, okay? So go ahead and just do like a seesaw action. Right
I'm so
here.
excited. It smells so good. Oh my God, that is perfection.
Awesome.
Chef, perfection. All right, so we've got everything completed and it's perfection.
That's awesome. Now we're gonna do the plating. So I made this lime reduction sauce right here. Go ahead and just
Beautiful.
go ahead. Let's slice up a Beef Wellington. Look at that color.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful.
Look at that.
I'm gonna go ahead. I like to go ahead and just add some potatoes, and when I'm doing it, I'm kind of doing a little bit of like it's just kind of like in a circular motion.
This looks amazing. I'm so excited.
And next is add a little rosemary.
Beautiful.
There you have it.
And voila! Thank you so much, Chef O, for joining us and showing us how to do the perfect beef Wellington. Please don't forget to
Like and subscribe, and follow me at therealchefo.com.
That's
Not
right.
.com, at therealchefo.
doesn't matter. Just follow them. Thank you so much.